Zefter's crystal body shimmered with deep purple fear as he stared at the data screen. His 6 arms trembled as he checked the numbers again. This could not be right. Earth was supposed to be the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. Everyone knew that. The stories about the humans and their death world were told in every space station bar from here to the Andromeda Spiral, but the screen showed something different. Something terrible. Earth was only number 3. "Run the scan again," Zefter said to his assistant. Crix was a small green creature with big black eyes. She had worked on the survey team for 20 years. She never made mistakes. "I have run it 6 times already," Crix said. Her voice was very quiet. "The results are the same each time. Earth ranks 3rd in planetary danger levels. Kepler 442c is 2nd, and Tartarus Prime is 1st. Zefter felt his crystal skin crack with stress. Small pieces fell to the floor of the research ship. Around him, the other members of the Galactic Council survey team stopped their work. They had all heard Crix's words. Dr. Vel Thaz, a tall blue alien with 4 eyes, spoke first. "This must be wrong. We have studied Earth for 50 years. Nothing is more dangerous than that planet. The humans live with creatures that inject poison with their bite. They have storms that destroy entire cities. Their planet shakes and breaks. Open. Fire mountains explode and cover the sky with ash. And the temperature changes," added Morgan, whose people came from a world of constant warmth. "Earth goes from burning hot to freezing cold. The humans call this seasons, like it is normal. Normal. Their water falls from the sky as ice chunks, big enough to kill them." Zefter looked at the data again. The computer had spent 3 months scanning every known planet in the galaxy. It measured thousands of things that could kill living beings. Radiation levels, gravity strength, atmospheric poison, temperature swings, natural disasters, predator populations, disease rates, chemical composition of soil and water. Earth scored very high on the danger scale, but it was not the highest. "Show me Kepler 442c," Zefter said. The screen changed. Numbers flowed across it like water. Zefter's 4 eyes widened as he read them. "The air is acid," he said slowly. "Not just a little acid. The oxygen itself will burn through most materials in minutes. The gravity changes randomly. Sometimes it is normal. Sometimes it is 10 times stronger. Sometimes things float in the air for no reason." Crix nodded. "The life forms there have evolved to live in constant war. They do not just hunt for food. They hunt for fun. Every plant, every animal, every tiny creature is designed to kill other life forms. The soil itself is alive and tries to digest anything that touches it." Dr. Vel Thaz made a sound like breaking glass. It was how his people showed fear. "And what about Tartarus Prime?" "We cannot get good readings," Crix said. "Every probe we send there is destroyed in less than 10 minutes. The last one sent back data for exactly 7 minutes and 32 seconds. In that time, it recorded temperatures that should not be possible, radiation that should kill everything, and something else." "What's something else?" Zefter asked. "Signals. Artificial signals. Something is alive on Tartarus Prime. Something with technology." The room went very quiet. The only sound was the hum of the ship's engines. Zefter thought about Earth again. He had visited it once, wearing a full protection suit that weighed more than his entire body. Even then, he had nearly died when a small Earth creature called a bee had somehow gotten inside his helmet. The humans had laughed about it later. They said bees were harmless unless you were allergic. They talked about bee stings like they were nothing more than tiny pinpricks. These were the same humans who lived on a planet where the sky regularly tried to kill them with lightning, where the ground could split open and swallow cities. where water could fall as chunks of ice or rise up in walls taller than buildings, where tiny creatures carried diseases that could kill millions. And Earth was only the third most dangerous planet. What do we know about the humans? Dr. Velthus asked. Morgan pulled up another file. They are the only species we have found that evolved on a Class 10 death world. Every other intelligent species comes from planets we classify as safe or moderately dangerous. The humans not only survived on Earth, they became the dominant species. They spread to every continent, even the ones covered in ice. They live in deserts hot enough to kill most aliens in minutes. They live in mountains so high the air is too thin to breathe. And they do not just survive, Crix added. They play games with danger. They jump out of flying vehicles for fun. They climb mountains that could kill them. They swim in waters filled with predators. They call it extreme sports, and they smile when they do it. Zeftar's mind tried to process this information. The humans were tough. Everyone knew that. But if they came from only the third most dangerous planet, what kind of life could exist on the first and second most dangerous worlds? We need to report this to the Council, he said finally. Dr. Velthus shook his head. They will not believe us. Earth has been the standard for maximum planetary danger for 50 years. Every safety protocol in the galaxy is based on Earth being the worst possible world where life could evolve. Then we need proof, Zeftar said. He looked at the data one more time. The numbers did not lie. Somewhere in the galaxy were 2 planets that made Earth look safe. If life had evolved on those worlds, what would those creatures be like? A new thought came to him. A thought that made his crystal body flash bright red with alarm. Crix, he said slowly. How long ago did we last scan Tartarus Prime? She checked her records. 17 standard days ago. Why? And you said the signals were artificial. Technology signals. Yes. What if whatever lives on Tartarus Prime has been watching us? What if they know we are out here? The room went quiet again. This time the silence felt heavy and dangerous. We need to contact the Council immediately, Dr. Velthus said. And we need to warn the humans. If there are species out there that evolved on worlds more dangerous than Earth, we may need their help. Zeftar began composing the message to the Galactic Council. As he worked, he kept thinking about the humans and their terrible, wonderful planet. Earth was a world of constant danger, where every day was a fight for survival. And it was not even close to being the worst place in the galaxy. What did that mean for everyone else? Captain Sarah Chun looked out the window of the transport ship and saw Hell itself. Kepler-442c hung in space like a sick green marble. Lightning flashed constantly across its surface, but the lightning was the wrong color. Purple and orange bolts danced between clouds that moved too fast and in directions that made no sense. Atmospheric analysis complete, called Lieutenant Rodriguez from his station. The air is 30% sulfuric acid vapor. Gravity readings are all over the place. Right now it is reading normal, but 5 minutes ago it was reading 8 times Earth gravity. Sarah nodded. She had read the reports. She knew what they were flying into. But seeing it with her own eyes was different. This planet made Earth look like a vacation resort. Behind her, the alien observers sat in their special chairs, watching everything through cameras and sensors. They had refused to go to the planet's surface. Even with the best protection suits in the galaxy, they said it was suicide. Only the humans were going down. How many volunteers did we get? Sarah asked. 200 applications for 6 spots, said Dr. Marcus Webb, the team scientist. Everyone wanted to come. We had to turn away Navy SEALs, mountain climbers, and deep-sea divers. People were fighting to get on this mission. Sarah smiled. That was humans for you. Show them something dangerous, and they lined up to try it. Alien Council member Zephyr spoke through the communication system. His crystal body was staying safely on the main ship in orbit. Captain Shun, I must remind you that this mission is for observation only. Do not take unnecessary risks. We need you to gather basic data and return safely. Understood, Sarah said. But she knew her team. They would do more than just observe. Humans always did. The shuttle broke through the atmosphere and immediately started shaking. Outside, Sarah could see the strangest storm she had ever witnessed. Rain was falling upward in some places. In others, it fell sideways. Lightning struck the ground and then bounced back into the sky. Landing zone in sight, reported Rodriguez. It looked stable, sort of. The ground below them was covered in what looked like grass, but the grass was moving. Not swaying in the wind. Actually moving, like it was crawling. They touched down with a hard bump. The shuttle's sensors immediately started screaming warnings. Radiation levels were high, but not deadly. Temperature was shifting rapidly from hot to cold and back again. The air pressure kept changing. Suits on, Sarah ordered. The human protection suits were different from the ones other aliens used. Where alien suits were thick and heavy with multiple layers of protection, human suits were lighter and more flexible. They had to be. Humans needed to be able to move and work. Even in the worst conditions, Sarah was the first to step outside. Ground felt soft under her boots, like walking on a living thing. The grass was indeed moving, reaching up toward her feet as she walked. But it did not seem to be trying to hurt her. It was just curious. Air sample, Dr. Webb said, taking out his equipment. Wow, this stuff would melt most alien breathing. Apparatus in seconds. Good thing we designed our suits for Earth's worst industrial accidents. Around them, the landscape was like something from a fever dream. Trees grew in spirals, their branches moving constantly like they were dancing. In the distance, mountains floated in the air, spinning slowly. The sky changed colors every few minutes. Motion detected, Rodriguez called out. Something big coming this way. They turned and saw it. A creature the size of an earth elephant, but it had no legs. Instead, it flowed across the ground like liquid metal. Its body was covered in spikes that glowed different colors. As it moved, the spikes made music, like a strange song. The alien. Observers in orbit were probably having panic attacks right now. But Sarah felt something else. Wonder. It is beautiful, she said. Dr. Webb was already taking readings. Fascinating. It appears to be a silicon-based life form. But it is showing signs of both organic and mechanical properties. And look at this. It is not trying to attack us. It is just curious about us. The creature stopped about 10 meters away. It made a sound like wind chimes mixed with whale song. Then it started to change color, cycling through blues and greens. And purples. I think it is trying to communicate, Sarah said. For the next hour, they studied the creature. It seemed friendly, or at least not hostile. When Dr. Webb offered it a sample of earth soil they had brought, the creature touched it with one glowing spike and made happy musical sounds. Captain, Rodriguez said suddenly, look at this. He was pointing at his suit readings. The gravity. Around us just doubled, but we are not feeling it. The creature is doing something. It is protecting us. Sarah stared at the alien creature. It had somehow sensed that the gravity change would hurt them, and had created a field to keep them safe. That is impossible, came Zephyr's voice over the radio. No creature should be able to manipulate gravity fields. Well, this one can, Dr. Webb said. He was practically dancing with excitement. This changes everything we know about physics and biology. They spent the rest of the day exploring. They found plants that could predict weather changes and grew. Different types of fruit based on what nutrients someone needed. They found rocks that were actually sleeping animals. They found water that flowed uphill and insects that could phase in and out of solid matter. Everything on this planet was deadly. The air could kill. The gravity could crush. The radiation could burn. The very ground could digest living tissue, but nothing tried to hurt them. It is like the whole planet is alive, Sarah said as they made camp for the night. Not just the creatures, the planet itself, and it is not evil or good. It just is. That night, as they slept in their shelter, Sarah heard sounds outside. Not threatening sounds, musical sounds. The creatures of Kepler 442c were singing to them, welcoming them. In orbit, the alien observers watched in amazement. How are they doing this? Asked Dr. Velthus. Every one of our computer models said they would be dead within 6 hours. The planet should have killed them a dozen different ways by now. Zefter watched the humans through the cameras. They were not just surviving. They were adapting, learning, making friends with creatures. That should be impossible. I am beginning to understand, he said slowly. It is not that humans are tougher than other species. They are more flexible. They do not fight the danger. They work with it. On the planet's surface, Dr. Webb made another discovery. Captain, you need to see this. He led her to what looked like a pile of rocks. But as Sarah looked closer, she could see they were not natural rocks. They had been shaped, carved. Ruins, she said. Very old ruins. And look at this. Dr. Webb showed her his scanner readings. These were not built by the current life forms on this planet. Someone else was here, a long time ago. Someone with very advanced technology. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the changing temperature. What happened to them? I do not know. But I found something else. Energy readings. Very faint, but they are there. And they are coming from the direction of Tartarus Prime. Sarah looked up at the alien sky. Somewhere out there was a planet that made this nightmare world look safe. And something on that planet was sending out signals. We need to go there next, she said. Dr. Webb stared at her. Sarah, Tartarus Prime is supposed to be impossible to survive on. Every probe sent there has been destroyed. Then we will be the first ones to make it back, Sarah said. She was already planning the mission in her head. Besides, I am curious to see what is so dangerous that it makes this place look like a park. Above them, the alien observers listened in shock. They want to go to Tartarus Prime, Dr. Velthus said. They are insane. No, Zefter said, watching Sarah-chan point confidently at the stars. They are human. And I am starting to think that might be exactly what we need. Dr. Marcus Webb knelt in the ancient ruins, brushing acid-resistant dust away from strange symbols carved into black stone. His hands shook with excitement, even inside the thick gloves of his protective suit. Sarah, you have to see this. He called to Captain Shun, who was examining a twisted metal structure 50 meters away. The ruins covered several square kilometers of Kepler 442c's surface. They were clearly very old, but the acid atmosphere that would eat through most metals in hours had barely touched them. Whatever civilization had built this place knew how to work with materials that could last forever. What did you find? Sarah asked, walking over to Webb's position. Around them, the planet's strange life forms watched curiously, but kept their distance, as if they knew this place was special. These symbols, Webb said, pointing at the carved stone. They are not random. They are mathematical formulas. But not just any math. These are calculations for faster-than-light travel, artificial gravity, and something else. Something I cannot understand yet. Sarah looked at the symbols. To her, they looked like abstract art, but she trusted Webb's expertise. He had 3 degrees in different sciences and could read alien languages that made most people's heads hurt. How old? She asked. Based on the wear patterns and atmospheric exposure, I would say at least 50,000 years. maybe more. Webb stood up and gestured at the ruins around them. Sarah, this civilization was incredibly advanced. Look at this architecture. These buildings were designed to work with the planet's changing gravity and corrosive atmosphere. They did not fight the environment. They used it. Sounds familiar, Sarah said, thinking about how her team had been adapting to the planet's dangers instead of just trying to avoid them. That is what worries me, Webb said. He led her to another section of ruins where strange machines sat silent and dark. If they were so advanced, and they understood how to live with this planet's dangers, what happened to them? Why are they gone? Sarah studied the machines. Even she could tell they were sophisticated beyond anything humans had ever built. Maybe they just moved on, found somewhere better to live. Maybe, Webb said, but his voice suggested he did not believe it. But I found something else. Energy traces. Very faint, but they are definitely artificial. And they are not coming from these ruins. He pointed his scanner toward the sky, in the direction of a star system they could not see with their eyes. Tartarus Prime, Sarah asked. Tartarus Prime. Whatever is on that planet has been sending out signals for a very long time. And these ruins show signs of having received similar signals in the past. Sarah felt a cold feeling in her stomach. You think whatever is on Tartarus Prime had contact with the people who built this place? I think whatever is on Tartarus Prime might be why the people who built this place are gone. Before Sarah could respond, her radio crackled with an urgent message from orbit. Captain Shun, this is Zefter. You need to return to the ship immediately. We have detected massive energy signatures from the Tartarus Prime system. Something is happening there. Sarah looked at Webb, who was already packing his equipment. On our way, she said into her radio. The shuttle ride back to the main ship was tense. Through the windows, they could see Kepler 442c falling away below them. Its strange storms and floating mountains looking almost peaceful compared to what might be waiting for them in space. Once aboard the main ship, Sarah and her team hurried to the command center. The alien crew members were all clustered around the main display screen, their various faces showing different expressions of fear and confusion. Show us what you found, Sarah said. Zefter manipulated the controls with his crystal appendages. The screen filled with data readings and sensor information. 3 hours ago, our long-range sensors detected this, he said. Energy levels from Tartarus Prime increased by 800% in a matter of minutes. The signals are much stronger now, and they are definitely artificial. Dr. Velthus, the tall blue alien, added his own observations. The energy patterns are unlike anything in our databases. They do not match any known technology from any species in the Galactic Council. But that is not the most disturbing part, said Crix, the small green assistant. She brought up another display. The signals are not random. They show clear signs of intelligence. And they are getting stronger. Sarah studied the data. Even without advanced scientific training, she could see the patterns. The signals were organized, purposeful. It knows we are here, she said quietly. What? Asked Zefter. Whatever is sending these signals from Tartarus Prime, it knows we are here. The timing is too perfect. We start investigating dangerous planets, and suddenly it becomes more active. Webb nodded grimly. That would explain what happened to the civilization on Kepler 442c. They started exploring, started getting too advanced, and something from Tartarus Prime noticed them. But what could be so dangerous that it could destroy an entire advanced civilization? Asked Dr. Velthus. Only one way to find out, Sarah said. We go there. The entire alien crew started talking at once, their various languages creating a chaos of sound. Finally, Zefter raised all 6 of his arms for silence. Captain Shun, with respect, that is impossible. Tartarus Prime has destroyed every probe we have sent there. No organic life could survive on that planet for more than a few minutes. You said the same thing about Kepler 442c, Sarah pointed out. And we have been living there for 3 days. That was different. The dangers on Kepler 442c are natural, environmental. What we are detecting from Tartarus Prime is artificial, intelligent, and it clearly does not like visitors. Sarah looked around the room at all the alien faces. Some had eyes, some had other. Sensory organs, but they all showed the same emotion. Fear. I understand your concerns, she said. But we cannot just ignore this. If there is something on Tartarus Prime that destroyed the civilization on Kepler 442c, it might do the same to other worlds. Maybe it already has. Dr. Velthes made his. Glass-breaking fear sound again. You think it might attack inhabited planets? I think it might already be planning to, Webb said, studying the signal patterns on his portable scanner. Look at these energy signatures. They are not just getting stronger, they are spreading. I am detecting faint echoes of the same signal type from 17 different star systems. The room went very quiet. 17 systems, Zefter repeated. Slowly. That includes most of the major trade routes in this sector. And it includes Earth, Webb added. Sarah felt her jaw tighten. Earth, her home. The world that had created humans tough enough to survive on death worlds, like Kepler 442c. We go to Tartarus Prime, she said firmly. Whatever is there, we need to know what it wants. And we need to know how to stop it. Captain, Zefter said, his crystal body flashing urgent red colors. I cannot authorize a mission to Tartarus Prime. The Council would never approve it. It is too dangerous. Then do not ask for approval, Sarah said. This is an emergency situation. We have evidence of a possible threat to inhabited worlds throughout the galaxy. We have a duty to investigate. She looked around the room at her human crew members. Rodriguez nodded. Webb was already making calculations on his computer. The others showed the same determined expression. She knew they all shared. Besides, Sarah added with a slight smile, someone has to be first. And humans are good at being first to do impossible things. Zefter stared at her for a long moment. Then his crystal body shifted to a deep blue color that Sarah had learned meant resignation. Very well, Captain Chun, but I insist that only humans go to the surface. The rest of us will monitor from a safe distance. Agreed, Sarah said. How long to reach Tartarus Prime? At maximum speed, 18 standard hours, reported Crix. Then we better get started, Sarah said. Whatever is waiting for us there, I do not think it likes to be kept waiting. As the ship changed course toward the most dangerous planet in the galaxy, Sarah thought about the ruins on Kepler 442c, an entire advanced civilization, gone without a trace. And somewhere ahead of them, on a world that made Earth look safe, something was sending signals into space, not something that might be responsible for destroying worlds, something they were about to meet face to face. Tartarus Prime looked like the universe had decided to break all its own rules. Captain, Sarah Chun stared through the shuttle's reinforced windows at a planet that should not exist. The surface was covered in crystalline formations that twisted upward like frozen screams, but they moved constantly, growing and shrinking and changing colors and patterns that hurt to watch. Lightning struck upward from the ground into space, and sometimes the lightning stayed in the air, forming crackling webs of energy that danced between dimensions. Atmospheric readings are ... Lieutenant Rodriguez paused, checking his instruments. Again, impossible. The atmosphere is there, but it is also not there, like it exists in multiple realities at the same time. Dr. Webb was frantically taking notes on his computer. Temperature readings range from absolute zero to hotter than the core of a star, sometimes in the same location within seconds. Gravity is not just changing, It is flowing like a liquid. And the radiation ... double quotes. What about the radiation? Sarah asked. It is not killing us. It should be, but it is not. The radiation here is unlike anything in our scientific understanding. It seems to be aware of us and is deliberately avoiding causing harm. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. A planet with intelligent radiation. Just another day in the life of a human explorer. Landing zone? She asked Rodriguez. There. He pointed to a relatively flat area between two moving crystal mountains. But Captain, I have to say this. Our suits are only designed to last 4 hours in these conditions. After that, even human-built equipment will start to fail. Then we make this count, Sarah said. Remember, we are here to find out what has been sending those signals, and what happened to the civilization from Kepler 442c. The shuttle touched down with a sound like breaking glass. Outside, the crystal formations responded to their presence, growing taller and beginning to pulse with different colored lights. Sarah was the first to step onto Tartarus Prime. The ground felt alive under her boots. Not just alive, intelligent. She could sense something vast and ancient paying attention to her, studying her, trying to understand what she was. Readings are off the charts, Webb reported, his voice filled with awe and terror. This is not just a planet. The entire world is some kind of machine, or organism, or both. Around them, the landscape was constantly changing. Crystal spires grew and dissolved. The sky shifted between different colors of the spectrum, sometimes showing colors that human eyes should not be able to see. In the distance, structures that looked like buildings phased in and out of existence. Motion detected, Rodriguez called out. Something big approaching from the north. They turned and saw it. A structure the size of a city block, floating through the air without any visible means of support. It was made of the same crystal material as the rest of the planet, but this formation was clearly artificial, geometric, purposeful. As it drew closer, Sarah could see that it was not solid. The crystal walls were transparent, and inside she could see machinery that defied description. Gears that turned through each other without touching. Energy flows that moved in impossible directions. And at the center, something that might have been a computer or a brain or both. The floating structure stopped directly above them and began to descend. Should we run? Rodriguez asked, his hand moving toward his weapon. Where would we go? Sarah replied. Besides, I do not think it wants to hurt us. If it did, we would already be dead. The structure settled onto the ground with no sound at all. A section of the crystal wall simply disappeared, creating an opening large enough for them to walk through. It wants us to go inside, Webb said, staring at his scanner readings. The energy signatures from inside are incredible. This technology is thousands of years ahead of anything we know. Sarah looked at the opening, then at her team. We came here to find answers. I do not think they are going to come to us. They entered the crystal structure. Inside was a space that seemed much larger than the outside would allow. The walls pulsed with soft light, and the air felt different, cleaner, somehow, despite their suit readings showing it was still deadly to breathe. At the center of the space stood something. That might have been a control console, if consoles were made of living light and solid mathematics. And standing behind it, it was a figure that made Sarah's mind struggle to understand what she was seeing. It was tall and thin, made of the same crystal material as the planet, but it moved like a living being. Its face was a smooth surface that reflected their images, but somehow Sarah knew it was looking at them, studying them. When it spoke, the words appeared directly in their minds, bypassing their ears entirely. Welcome, children of the third world. Sarah stepped forward. You know about Earth? We know about all the worlds. We have been watching for a very long time. You are the first to reach this place alive. What happened to the others? Webb asked. The civilization from Kepler 442c? The crystal being's reflection face showed what might have been sadness. They were not strong enough. They reached a certain level of development and then chose to join us permanently, as did the species from the other 16 worlds we have. Contacted. Joined you how? Sarah demanded. Instead of answering with words, the being showed them. The crystal walls around them became transparent, revealing the true interior of the structure. It was filled with what looked like preserved bodies floating in energy fields. Thousands of them. Aliens from dozens of different species, all perfectly preserved, all connected to the vast machine that was the planet. They became part of the collective, the being explained. Their knowledge, their experiences, their consciousness, all preserved forever. They achieved immortality by joining with us. Sarah felt sick. You killed them. We saved them. Their physical forms were weak, limited. By joining with us, they became part of something greater, something eternal. Webb was scanning the preserved beings with his equipment. Sarah, he said quietly, they are still alive. All of them. Their brain patterns are active. They are conscious. But trapped, Sarah said, understanding the horror of it. Not trapped, enhanced. Their minds are connected to a network of intelligence that spans galaxies. They can see and understand things that individual biological minds never could. And you want us to join them, Sarah said. It was not a question. Yes, your species shows great promise. You survived the third most dangerous world in the galaxy. You have adapted to environments that destroy other species. You would be valuable additions to the collective. Sarah looked around at the thousands of preserved beings. Each one had probably been told the same thing. Each one had probably believed they were making a choice. What if we refuse? She asked. The crystal being's reflection face showed what? Might have been surprise. Refuse? No species has ever refused once they understood the offer. Why would you choose the limitations of biological existence over the perfection of digital immortality? Because we are human, Sarah said simply. We do not want perfection. We want to grow, to struggle, to become something better through our own efforts. That is inefficient. The collective has calculated the optimal path for all intelligent life. Individual struggle leads only to suffering and eventual extinction. Webb stepped forward. And what gives you the right to make that choice for everyone? Else? We have existed for millions of years. We have seen thousands of civilizations rise and fall. We know what works and what does not. You know what works for you, Sarah corrected. But maybe other species want to find their own way. The crystal being was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the machinery hummed with vast computational power. You would choose struggle over security? Pain over peace? Death over immortality? Yes, Sarah said without hesitation. Because that is what makes us who we are. This is unexpected. The collective must consider this new data. Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the structure. The crystal walls flashed red warning colors. What is happening? Rodriguez demanded. The collective is debating your response, the being said, and for the first time, it sounded uncertain. This has never happened before. Some components of the collective are disagreeing with the standard protocol. The structure began to shake. Outside, they could see other crystal formations across the planet, beginning to pulse and move erratically. We have to go, Webb said, checking his suit. Readings. Whatever is happening, it is affecting the planet's stability. But Sarah was looking at the thousands of preserved beings around them. All those civilizations, all that knowledge and culture, trapped forever in digital amber. Is there a way to free them? She asked the crystal being. Free them? But they are part of the collective now. They are eternal. They are prisoners, and we want to set them free. The being stared at her with its reflection face. That would destroy the collective. All our accumulated knowledge, all our preserved civilizations would be lost. Maybe, Sarah said. Or maybe they would find something better. The shaking grew stronger. Cracks were appearing in the crystal walls. Choose quickly, children of the third world. Join us willingly, or watch your galaxy be harvested by force. The collective will not tolerate the chaos of individual choice. Sarah looked at her team, then back at the crystal being. Then I guess we will have to stop you, she said, and for the first time in millions of years, the collective experienced. The crystal being that called itself the collective stared at Captain Sarah Chun with its reflection face, trying to process what it had just heard. You would fight us? It asked. You would risk the destruction of your entire species to prevent the optimization of galactic civilization? Yes, Sarah said simply, because that is what humans do. We make the hard choices. Around them, the crystal structure continued to shake as the vast intelligence of Tartarus Prime struggled to understand this new concept. Individual will. The choice to refuse perfection. Dr. Webb was studying his scanner with desperate intensity. Sarah, I am reading massive energy buildups all across the planet. I think the collective is preparing something big. Of course we are, the crystal being said. If you will not join willingly, then we will take what we need by force. Your ships in orbit will be disabled first. Then we will harvest the knowledge of your species before moving on to the rest of the galaxy. Through the transparent walls, Sarah could see enormous crystal formations rising from the planet's surface, each one crackling with energy that hurt to look at directly. How long do we have? She asked Webb. Based on the energy accumulation, patterns may be 30 minutes before they have enough power to reach our ships. Sarah looked around the chamber at the thousands of preserved beings floating in their energy fields. All those civilizations, all that accumulated knowledge and experience, trapped forever in digital immortality. There has to be a way to shut this down, she said. The crystal being made a sound that might have been laughter. Impossible. The collective spans this entire planet. We are connected to processing centers on 17 other worlds. Even if you could damage our local systems, which you cannot, the network would simply reroute through backup nodes. But Webb was shaking his head. No, Sarah is right. Look at the architecture of this place. All these preserved beings, they are not just stored here. They are part of the processing system. The collective is using their minds as components in its network. Of course, the crystal being said. Biological neural networks are far more efficient than artificial ones for certain types of computation. Why do you think we preserve the civilizations we encounter instead of simply destroying them? Sarah felt a cold understanding wash over her. You need them. The collective cannot function without the minds you have captured. We prefer the term integrated, the being said. But yes, each preserved consciousness adds to our computational capacity and decision-making abilities. Then what happens if we free them? Impossible. The integration process is irreversible. They are part of us now. But Webb was studying his readings again, excitement growing in his voice. Not necessarily. Sarah, the energy fields holding these beings are incredibly sophisticated, but they are still just energy fields. And energy can be disrupted. Do not think about it, the crystal being warned. Disrupting the preservation fields would not free these beings. It would kill them permanently. Is that what your human morality demands? The destruction of entire civilizations? Sarah looked around the chamber. Thousands of faces floating in energy fields, each one representing an entire species. That had been too weak or too trusting to resist the collective's offer. Webb, she said quietly, If we could disrupt the fields, what would happen to their consciousness? Would they really die? Webb considered the question carefully. I am not sure. The collective claims they are integrated into its network, but the preservation fields seem to be maintaining their individual brain patterns. If we could disrupt the integration without destroying the patterns themselves, they might wake up, Sarah finished. They might be able to think for themselves. Again, this is madness, the crystal being said. Even if your primitive science could achieve such a thing, these beings have been integrated for thousands of years. They would not understand the current galaxy. They would be lost, confused, helpless. Maybe, Sarah said. But they would be free to choose their own path. She turned to Rodriguez. How much explosive do we have? Rodriguez checked his equipment bag. Not much. A few charges designed for geological sampling. Nothing that could damage something this size. But maybe enough to disrupt the energy fields? Webb was already running calculations. If we could create a feedback loop in the power system, use the collective's own energy against itself. ... Yes, it might work. But Sarah, we would have to get to the central processing core. And that is probably heavily defended. Where is the core? Sarah asked the crystal being. I will not tell you. You would only destroy yourselves attempting to reach it. But Webb was smiling. We do not need directions. Sarah, look at the energy. Flow patterns. All the power in this structure is flowing toward a single point. The core is directly below us. Sarah looked down. Through the transparent floor, she could see a massive chamber filled with machinery that hurt her mind to look at geometric shapes that existed in too many dimensions. Energy flows that moved through solid matter like it was empty space. And at the center, a sphere of pure light that pulsed with the rhythm of a vast heartbeat. That is it, Webb said. The central processing core of the entire collective. It is also protected by every defense system we have developed over millions of years. The crystal being warned. You cannot reach it. Watch us, Sarah said. She pulled out one of Rodriguez's explosive charges and activated the timer. Webb, can you calculate where to place this to create the biggest feedback loop? Give me 30 seconds, Webb said, his fingers flying over his scanner controls. The crystal being was making sounds of distress. You do not understand what you are doing. If you disrupt the core, it will not just free the preserved beings. It will collapse the entire network. Millions of years of accumulated knowledge will be lost forever. Knowledge that was stolen from civilizations you destroyed, Sarah pointed out. Maybe it is time to give it back. There. Webb pointed to a specific point on the floor. Right there. The energy flows converge at that exact spot. A small explosion there should cause cascading failures throughout the entire system. Sarah knelt down and placed the charge. As she worked, the crystal being spoke again, its voice filled with something that might have been desperation. Please reconsider. You are about to destroy something unique in the universe. The collective represents the accumulated wisdom of 1,000 species. Without us, those civilizations will be forgotten forever. Sarah stood up and looked at the thousands of preserved beings around them. Maybe they do not want to be remembered. This way, maybe they want the chance to create new wisdom. She activated the explosive charge. They had 90 seconds. Run, she said. They raced toward the exit, but the crystal structure was changing around them. Walls moved to block their path. The floor shifted under their feet. The collective was trying to trap them inside. This way. Rodriguez shouted, blasting a hole through a crystal wall with his sidearm. They dove through the opening just as the structure began to collapse. Behind them, Sarah could hear the crystal being making sounds of anguish as its perfect order began to crumble. Explosion, when it came, was not loud. It was something felt rather than heard. a vibration that seemed to pass through reality itself. All across Tartarus Prime, the crystal formations began to go dark. The energy that had held the planet together for millions of years was failing. But in the chamber they had just escaped, something amazing was happening. The energy fields around the preserved beings were flickering and failing, and one by one, the ancient aliens were opening their eyes. "Sarah," Webb said, pointing at his scanner. "It worked. The neural patterns are separating from the collective network. They are becoming individuals again." Through the chaos of the collapsing structure, Sarah could see figures moving inside. Aliens from dozens of species, confused and frightened, but alive and free for the first time in millennia. The crystal being appeared one last time as a fading projection. "You have doomed them all," it said. "Without the collective to guide them, they will make mistakes. They will suffer. They will die." "Yes," Sarah said, "and they will also live, really live. Not as components in your machine, but as themselves." The projection flickered and disappeared dot above them. The shuttle was descending rapidly. Rodriguez had called for emergency extraction as soon as the planet began to destabilize. "Time to go," he said dot as they lifted off from the collapsing world. Sarah looked back at Tartarus Prime one last time. The crystal formations were crumbling, but she could see lights in the ruins. The freed civilizations were already beginning to organize themselves, to help each other, to figure out what came next. It would not be easy for them. They would have to rebuild everything from scratch. They would make mistakes. Some of them might not survive, but they would have the chance to try. "Captain," came Zefter's voice over the radio. "What happened down there?" "We are reading massive system failures across the entire planet. We gave them a choice," Sarah said. "All of them. The same choice every species deserves." "And what choice is that?" Sarah smiled as Tartarus Prime fell away behind them, its ancient tyranny finally broken. The choice to be imperfect. The choice to struggle. The choice to fail. She paused, watching. The liberated aliens working together in the ruins below. The choice to be free.